Amari Cooper, TJ Yeldon, Landon Collins go right down the line. A ton of stars and impact players gone from the 2014 Alabama Crimson Tide. They start up spring practice later this week. We bring in Ben George of Tide 99.1 to break down what will be a very pivotal series of practices for Alabama to get themselves prepped and primed for summer camp so that they can weed out who exactly is going to help this football team and where. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Good, Mark. How we doing?
Doing well.
Good.
Let's start at quarterback. Blake Sims stepped up, got the job done, had a very productive season, but now he's gone, and we've got a number of candidates, including I think a lot of Alabama fans intrigued and happy that Blake Barnett's going to take reps this spring as well. So size up quarterback for us to start us out.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest storyline, the most popular position to watch this spring, and it's very similar to last year. Jacob Coker is the front runner, I guess you would say, into spring. You know, he didn't work here in Tuscaloosa last spring. He came in the summer, but he was the odds-on guy to take the starting job last fall. But he liked him. Now he's got the opportunity as a year in the system. Will he be able to rise above the rest of the guys? Now, you know, outside of him, you have David Cornwell, who is back in, and you have Cooper Bateman, who took a lot of reps and looked pretty good at times last fall when he was working with Sims and alongside Coker as well. But then, of course, there is Blake Barnett, the true freshman. He's been on campus for 2 months. You know, he's a guy that people think can possibly be a dynamic player for Alabama. You know, the question is whether or not he can play right away and whether or not he can get adjusted to the system right away. You know, Lane Kiffin recruited him. You know, he's a guy that can probably flourish under Lane, but it's tough to walk on as a freshman and to start playing from day one. So that'll be the thing to watch. But Saban did say in his press conference on signing day that, you know, he's not against playing a freshman if he's the best player. You know, we all figured that he's alluding to Blake Barnett there, but we'll watch that because that's a big deal. There's definitely uncertain at this point who's going to grab that spot. You know, your guess is as good as mine. I think a lot of people are hoping to see Blake Barnett really surprise and look good. But we probably won't learn a whole lot this spring. They'll probably get a lot of guys reps. We'll learn more in the fall, but it'll be fun to watch.
So Barnett's as good as advertised and as good as quickly as he possibly could be, because we see more freshmen playing quarterback on the big stage than ever before in college football history. You're setting up Jake Coker for having possibly the dubious distinction of being the favorite going into camp and losing the job 2 consecutive years. So just thought I'd throw that out there, Ben.
Well, yeah, in 3 consecutive years, he might have been the favorite going in at Florida State when Jameis went out, to be honest with you. So, you know, he's been a guy that's just fallen short barely, you know, 2 consecutive years and a third this year. I mean, look, I think most Alabama fans are hoping he's the guy just because he's got the most experience. You know, he's the guy with the tools. Anytime you're starting a true freshman, you'd be very concerned if it was Barnett, just because of the inexperience and the possibility for bigger mistakes rather than a guy like Coker who's seasoned, been in the system for a while. But yeah, he's a guy that could have that dubious distinction in 6 months from now.
All right, Ben, let's look at running back. Alabama always has 2 guys that are borderline great, very capable players, star players. It's been years and years and years since that has not been the situation in Tuscaloosa. Kenyon Drake comes back after the horrific injury against Florida, I believe. Derrick Henry seems to be the guy. Set up the running back position for us.
Yeah, it was actually against Ole Miss, but yeah, those are the 2 guys right now that we're looking at. You know, they lose. Not only do you lose Yeldon, but you also lose Alton Penny, who transferred. Tyron Jones is suspended. We don't know his status. So those are the guys that stepped in behind last year. So those are, you know, you lose 3 guys that had a number of carries. So the eyes will be on Henry. Can Henry be the number 1 back, Mark? That's really the biggest question. Can he be a guy that carries the majority of the loads? He's a great guy to bring in the second half, huge back. When defenses are tired, he can make them pay. But can he do it all game? We'll watch that. Also with Kenyon Drake, I want to see how he's recovered. He looks like he's getting back to full speed. Anytime coming back from a broken bone, you want to make sure you're fully healed there. So we'll watch him. But I think he's the guy that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he won the number one spot should he be healthy and do what he needs to do. Stay out of trouble, stay out of, not really trouble, but Nick Saban's doghouse. He could be a guy that gets most of the load. But you have a guy like Bo Scarborough, who is on campus already. He was part of a recruiting class 2 years ago, didn't qualify. He's back. He's a big guy. Looks like he could be pretty good. Damian Harris is a running back that we'll see. We won't see him yet, but he's another guy we'll see in the fall. Running back's going to be a fun position to watch. There's talent there, but again, we don't know who's going to be that lead back. We don't know for sure because Derrick Henry and Drake have both played those complementary roles through their career.
I think I had Florida on my mind because Drake took it to the house from the slot, right on the bomb, like the first play of the game against the Gators. And then he got hurt the next week against Ole Miss. So maybe we see a lot more of that type of strategy with Kenyon Drake this year. Maybe they do different things with him, get him on the edge, throw him the ball out of the backfield, do some of those things.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the plan. He's a matchup nightmare. He's got pretty good hands. He's lightning quick. The problem is he's fumbled a lot. You remember that Florida game? He has that touchdown play. Okay, one of the biggest plays of the game. Comes back. I think the next touch he had, he fumbles it and turns it over to Florida. Part of that first half where Alabama, I think, fumbled the ball 3 times. So that's his biggest issue. Just ball control and do what you need to do. And he could be an all-SEC player. There's no question in my mind. He's got that kind of talent. He just hasn't put it all together yet and had the unfortunate injury. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
So there are spots open all over the field, just about every unit. But I think we really need to dig in on the wide receivers because, as you mentioned before we came on, Amari Cooper, arguably the best player in college football. DeAndrew White caught passes in a lot of big games, stepped up in those spots. Christian Jones, a special teams standout, to say the least, and possibly the third best wide receiver, I think, pretty clearly from the 2014 team. They're all gone. So, wow, wide receivers wide open.
Yeah, no question. Who's going to be that guy? They're going to have 3 guys that you probably will likely see. I mean, Chris Black's one that he's been around for a while. He's made some plays when he's had the opportunity. He's been buried on the depth chart, but he's got some quickness. He could be the guy that steps up. You also have Cam Sims. Cam Sims showed some pretty good skills last year. Robert Foster was a 5-star receiver out of Pennsylvania, and then Ardarius Stewart. I think he might be the number 1 guy potentially. He seems like he's more of a slot guy. He's a little bit smaller, quicker, shiftier, but there's been a lot of good things said about him through practice. He showed some signs of that last year. Didn't get a ton of opportunity, but if I had to pick anyone for a big breakout year, it'd probably be Stewart. But Chris he's been on the cusp for a couple of years now, and it might be him.
The defensive line, probably the best in the SEC, if not college football, even though they lose some players around at that defensive front, in the front 7. Talk about the defensive backfield, because I think, again, as you know better than just about anyone, that was the sore spot last year, and Landon Collins is gone, and there's some issues there.
Yeah, Alabama's going to return a number of guys that have experience at cornerback, but they've been inconsistent, and that's putting it pretty mildly. They got taken advantage of a lot late against passing teams last year. Auburn threw a ton on them. Ohio State had a lot of success. Missouri had some success just throwing the deep ball in the SEC championship. So while Cyrus Jones is back. He's there. Eddie Jackson's there. 2 guys that have a lot of experience. But you have guys that have been waiting in the wings like Tony Brown, who saw some playing time last year. You got Marlon Humphrey, another guy that's got a huge upside. But who wants to take that position, and who wants to be consistent? I mean, Saban's had to move guys in and out, try different combinations, started a number of different guys. But we don't know who's going to be the biggest weaknesses Alabama had last year. They didn't have that standout lockdown corner that Saban's had arguably every year that he's had success, and that really hurt him. So I don't know who's going to be. I think Tony Brown seeing him at Pro Day. The guy is jacked, Mark, and he's a big, strong kid. He's got the body of a senior, and he's got a ton of speed. He's running track, so he's a guy that I think he's one that people want to see on the field. Now he's got to earn that spot, but if he can get out there, he can be that type of player, I believe. But it's really, it's up for grabs. This spring's going to probably go a long way to earning confidence with Nick Saban and moving into the fall, having that spot. But right now, it can be anybody's.
All right, Ben. I think you've got us all set up for the spring here with the Crimson Tide. So again, the schedule is they hit just 1 or 2 practices later this week, then they take some time off, then they come back, right?
Yeah, they have one practice Friday, March the 13th, and they break. They go off spring break for a week, hopefully not Panama City. And then they will return to the practice field the following Monday, and they'll be practicing about 3 days a week going up until the A-Day game. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. This will be a little bit of a tease before the real practice gets going after spring break, but it'll be fun. But the one lock, Mark, for spring break I'm going to give you, the punter position. You can go ahead and lock that one up. J.K. Scott, he's going to have that spot heading into fall.
That kid basically held down Ohio State in the back half of the fourth quarter inside their own 5-yard line, and if Bama could have made one play, they could have credited getting to the national championship game to him.
I didn't mean to bring that up, Mark. We can go ahead and end this video.
Hey, well, it's all good. It's all good because we know what happened. But at the time, I'm like, man, this kid is killing us.
Yeah.
Because, man, it was just they played like the last 8 or 9 minutes of the game back in their own end zone, and it was pretty dicey there at the end. But
yeah,
credit him.
Special talent for sure. We joke about it down here that he might be a 3-year guy, 3 and done at the punter position. I mean, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't think that's a stretch because he's all but a lock for the Ray guy next year.
Now, I don't want to go crazy here because there are really no worries or major concerns with this football team because of the great recruiting, the great talent, Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin, they've got the staff, they got the program. Everything's in place in terms of we know that they're going to be good, but we don't really even know who's going to be where on the field. Those are the question marks. Who's going to be where? I know whoever they choose to put in those roles are going to perform, but who is it going to be?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and the team chemistry, But Nick Saban said he likes the way these guys have been working so far as we approach spring starting. So that's a good sign. He's saying some positive things. So we'll see if it translates to the field.
All right, Ben. Ben George, Tide 99.1, always getting the job done for us. Thanks.
All right, Mark.